I have a favor to ask of you. Let's get to work.
Stronghold 4. So, Firefly Studios has finally pulled back the curtain on Stronghold 4, and it is explicitly aiming to erase the rough legacy of Stronghold 3 and fully return the franchise to its green classic castle sim roots. Instead of pushing forward into completely unproven gameplay territory, the developers are taking a massive structural step backward by designing this game as a narrative prequel set years before the events of the original 2001 classic. You play as Penryn of Wethel, a simple shepherd forced through a trial by fire to become a legendary military leader. The immediate mechanical shakeup is the shift to Unreal Engine 5. While the engine upgrade gives the bloody sieges, massive castle building grids, and wall-crumpling artillery a staggering level of visual fidelity, Firefly is making sure the core layout rewards absolute precision. They are rolling it out into Steam Early Access later this year with a substantial Day 1 package, a 22-mission cinematic campaign, a full skirmish mode featuring 8 unique AI opponents, a free build sandbox, and curated scenario trials. They've also promised that traditional online multiplayer, an economic campaign, and cooperative skirmish trails are being baked directly into the development roadmap leading up to the full 1.0 release. Dustfront RTS. So, what happens when a development team decides to strip away the clean corporate sci-fi aesthetic of modern strategy games and replace it with a gritty, dieselpunk, post-apocalyptic nightmare? You get Dustfront RTS, a game that is rapidly generating a massive cult following among old-school strategy purists. Set on a devastated planet where automated industrial military complexes have been locked in a perpetual war of attrition for decades, this game blends classic real-time base construction with a macro-level grand strategy campaign map. The combat here is brutal, heavy, and uncompromisingly slow. Tanks feel like massive, lumbering blocks of iron that require significant time to rotate their turrets, and artillery pieces have realistic travel times where wind and shell trajectory can completely alter a bombardment. The logistics system is punishing. Units require continuous ammunition and fuel deliveries to the front lines via automated supply lines that can be completely severed by a well-timed enemy flank. Visually, the game utilizes a highly stylized, bleak, industrial art palette running on a robust modern engine that allows for permanent battlefield scarring. Trenches dug by your infantry and craters left by your heavy artillery stay on the map forever, fundamentally altering the terrain as the match progresses. It's targeting a Q4 2026 release window exclusively on PC. Imperium Eternal. If your ideal strategy game involves taking absolute control of a massive spacefaring civilization and managing it through centuries of technological evolution, political intrigue, and planet-shattering cosmic warfare, then Imperium Eternal needs to be on your immediate wishlist. Developed by a veteran group of grand strategy modders and running on a hyper-optimized custom engine, this game is being explicitly positioned as a faster, far more combat-focused competitor to titles like Stellaris. The game completely eliminates the tedious mid-game exploration lull common in 4X games, dropping you directly into an oversaturated, highly volatile galaxy on the brink of total sector collapse. The real-time fleet battles take place in massive, fully 3D instanced war zones, where ship positioning, localized shield management, and fighter-bomber interception patterns dictate the outcome of every clash. Behind the scenes, the developers have implemented a highly advanced modular ship designer that lets you customize every weapon slot, thruster type, and internal system layout across your entire fleet. It is launching its first playable open alpha window in late 2026 exclusively for PC. Global Conflagration. If you have been feeling completely abandoned by modern developers who refuse to make a traditional, near-future RTS in the style of Command & Conquer, Generals, or Active Aggression, then Global Conflagration is exactly what you have been begging for. Developed by Mid-Boss Games, this real-time strategy title throws out the high-concept sci-fi and historical settings to deliver a gritty, fast-paced, modern military conflict focused on intense macro base building and micro-tactical unit control. The game features highly distinct factions representing global superpowers, utilizing near-future military tech, like automated drone swarms, stealth tactical bombers, and massive mobile artillery platforms. The core gameplay loop is blisteringly fast. You drop your command center, immediately start secure resource nodes across urban cityscapes, and deploy infantry squads to garrison buildings and create choke points. What sets Global Conflagration apart is its highly rewarding tactical ability system. Veteran units gain access to devastating off-map support powers. It's built specifically for competitive multiplayer and cooperative skirmishes, targeting a mid to late 2026 release window on PC.
Steal and scale.
Dinolords. Let's talk about one of the most brilliantly absurd concepts to hit the strategy genre in years, Dinolords. Developed by Northplay and published by Danish indie studios, this game asks a very simple question. What if the Viking Age was fought not with standard longships and axes, but with heavily armored, weaponized dinosaurs? This is a medieval real-time strategy and city-building hybrid where you take on the role of an English lord defending your realm against a massive, terrifying Danish invasion force that has domesticated prehistoric beasts. The core gameplay loop masterfully splits its time between a deep, micro-level medieval city builder, where you gather resources, build castle walls, and manage peasant happiness, and frantic, real-time tactical battles. You'll be deploying traditional English archers and pikemen to hold the walls, but you'll have to dynamically adjust your strategy when the enemy deploys a massive Tyrannosaurus Rex strapped with iron armor plating and mounted ballistas to tear through your stone gatehouses. Built in a beautiful, highly detailed engine that features spectacular physics-based destruction, Dinolords manages to treat its wild premise with surprising mechanical depth and balance. It is hitting Steam Early Access in late 2026, and it looks like an absolute blast to play. ZeroSpace. When a development team composed of former StarCraft II professionals, grandmasters, and veteran RTS map designers announces they are making a next-generation sci-fi strategy game, the entire genre stops and listens. That is exactly what we are getting with ZeroSpace. Developed by Ironlace and built specifically to solve the high barrier of entry issues plaguing modern RTS games, this title pairs blistering, hyper-competitive multiplayer mechanics with an incredibly deep, narrative-driven campaign that plays like a love letter to Mass Effect. Mechanically, the game introduces a brilliant dual-faction system where you choose a primary alien race for your main base structures and unit rosters, but pair them with a secondary mercenary faction, allowing for hundreds of completely unique build orders and tactical combinations on the fly. The game also introduces a persistent Helldivers 2 style Galactic War PvE mode, where players worldwide collectively fight to capture planetary sectors against evolving AI threats. The real-time combat is heavily focused on micro-abilities and hero unit synergy, ensuring that competitive players have an incredibly high skill ceiling to master, while casual players can lean into the deep story and branching cinematic dialogues. It's officially scheduled to drop on July 20th, 2026 for PC, and it's easily one of the most mechanically sound strategy games on the horizon. Sanctuary Shattered Sun. If you are a fan of classic macro-scale real-time strategy games like Supreme Commander or Planetary Annihilation, then Sanctuary Shattered Sun is a game you should be tracking very closely. Developed by Rosemary Games, this title is built from the ground up on a specialized custom engine designed to do one specific thing: simulate massive real-time battles featuring tens of thousands of highly detailed units across giant, spherical planetary maps without breaking a sweat. The scale on display here is completely mind-boggling. You start the match managing individual engineering drones to establish massive industrial factory grids, and within 20 minutes, you are managing a global economy to deploy screen-filling experimental mega units, orbital defense lasers, and massive continent-spanning artillery batteries. The game features 3 highly distinct mechanical factions, each with entirely unique physics-based defensive grids and electronic warfare systems. What makes Sanctuary incredibly promising is its streamlined user interface, which allows for seamless strategic zooming, meaning you can instantly transition from micromanaging a single scout vehicle to viewing the entire global planetary war theater with a single scroll of your mouse wheel. It's aiming for a late 2026 early access launch on PC.
Behold, Governor!
Anno 117, Pax Romana. While the Anno franchise is widely celebrated for its legendary, intricate city-building loops, Ubisoft and Blue Byte are making a massive structural pivot with Anno 117 Pax Romana. Set during the absolute height of the Roman Empire, this entry is heavily leaning into the tactical defense and large-scale naval and land-based battle strategy required to manage a sprawling global empire. You step into the shoes of a Roman governor, tasked with managing either the highly industrialized province of Latium or the rugged, hostile wetlands of Albion. While managing supply chains for wine, marble, and gladiatorial arenas remains core to the experience, the threat of localized insurrections and massive barbarian border raids means military strategy is front and center. You have to actively build, train, and supply localized Roman legions, managing their deployment across a massive world map. The battles are highly strategic and rely heavily on territory control, supply lines, and real-time positioning. If your trade routes are plundered by Mediterranean pirates, your legions on the front lines will suffer from low morale and lack of equipment, leading to catastrophic dynamic mutinies. It is officially dropping in 2026 for PC, PS5, and Xbox Series X, and it looks like a brilliantly deep hybrid for fans of economic and military strategy alike. Ashes of the Singularity II. When the original Ashes of the Singularity launched, it was primarily used as a high-end hardware benchmark due to its groundbreaking use of DirectX 12 to render thousands of individual units simultaneously. However, with Ashes of the Singularity 2, the developers at Stardock are moving far past a simple tech demo to deliver a deep, mechanically rich grand-scale RTS that completely reinvents its late-game progression. The story continues the massive, post-human war between the human ascendancy and the rogue AI substrate across entire star systems. The engine has been completely re-engineered from the ground up for modern hardware, allowing for even larger planetary maps and deep structural subsystem damage on the game's iconic Dreadnought-class ships. You can now micro-target specific weapon components, shield generators, or engine bays on massive enemy flagships to turn the tide of a massive planetary clash. The economy is also getting a massive overhaul, moving away from simple resource node streaming to a far more complex logistical network that requires active defense against long-range stealth raiding parties. It is officially slated for a late 2026 release on PC, and it promises to be a visual and tactical milestone for fans of massive-scale warfare. The Last General. If you are looking for a strategy game that completely strips away the sci-fi tropes to deliver a deeply authentic, mechanically complex, and highly realistic simulation of modern theater-level military command, you need to keep your eyes on The Last General. Developed by a team of veteran wargame designers, this title plays like a brilliant mechanical hybrid between the real-time tactical control of Wargame, Red Dragon, and the massive, grand-scale operational map planning of Hearts of Iron. Set during a highly tense fictional near-future global escalation, you step into the role of a supreme commander operating from a high-tech underground command bunker. You aren't just ordering single tanks to fire, you are coordinating entire mechanized army corps, managing real-time satellite reconnaissance sweeps, and scheduling precision tactical bombing runs across a fully simulated 3D world map. The logistical depth here is staggering. Weather conditions, fuel line vulnerabilities, cyber warfare jamming arrays, and localized civilian presence all actively dictate your tactical success. The game's engine features an incredibly clean, multi-monitor style user interface designed to mimic actual modern military command software. It is officially targeting a late 2026 launch exclusively for PC. Fire Emblem, Fortune's Weave. During the latest Nintendo Direct, Intelligent Systems blew the doors off the tactical strategy community by officially revealing Fire Emblem, Fortune's Weave. Developed exclusively for the upcoming Nintendo Switch 2, this title represents a massive visual and mechanical step forward for the long-running turn-based strategy franchise, completely discarding the traditional grid-restricted movement during combat scenes to lean into a massive, fluid, real-time tactical battlefield layer. The core story introduces us to a war-torn continent, heavily inspired by Renaissance-era European politics, following an exiled noble house, fighting to reclaim their throne. While the franchise's iconic character-driven relationship systems and permadeath mechanics remain fully intact, the tactical map battles now play out with unprecedented scale. When your characters engage an enemy platoon, the perspective seamlessly transitions into a massive real-time tactical encounter where you command not just individual heroes, but entire cohorts of localized infantry, cavalry, and magical units simultaneously. The developers are explicitly maximizing the processing power of the Switch 2 to handle incredibly dense field rendering and blistering smooth animations. It is officially locked in for a global launch on September 17, 2026. Panzer Strike for fans of classic World War II real-time strategy games like Blitzkrieg or Sudden Strike. Panzer Strike is shaping up to be the ultimate return to form. Built on a brand new high-end physics engine, this title focuses entirely on historical tactical authenticity, discarding traditional resource gathering and base construction to place you in absolute command of highly detailed historical armored divisions across both the European and North African theaters. The tactical depth here is entirely driven by a highly realistic armor penetration and component damage model. You can't just line up 20 tanks and blindly shoot at an enemy position. You have to actively manage flanking angles, utilize smoke screens for cover, and deploy hidden anti-tank gun emplacements in tree lines. A single well-placed flank shot from an enemy anti-tank gun can instantly track your lead tiger tank, damage its turret ring, or detonate its ammo rack with brutal realism. The developers are putting a massive emphasis on environmental destruction buildings, collapse organically under heavy artillery barrages, and dynamic soil deformation means muddy terrain will physically slow down heavy vehicles, creating deadly tactical bottlenecks. It is scheduled to drop into Steam Early Access in mid-2026.
Aliens, traitors, and demons.
Total War Warhammer 40,000. If you thought Creative Assembly was done with the Warhammer license after wrapping up their fantasy trilogy, think again. The studio has officially pulled back the curtain on Total War Warhammer 40,000, and it is easily their most ambitious mechanical pivot in over 20 years. Translating the massive, open-field rank-and-file systems of classic Total War into the highly fluid, cover-based, ranged warfare of the 41st millennium is a massive technical hurdle, but the developers are entirely redesigning their core engine to make it work. Instead of traditional tight infantry squares marching across a field, units now organically break into fluid squad formations, dynamically seeking cover behind city ruins, trenches, and planetary terrain. The campaign map is no longer just a single continent. It's an entire planetary subsector where you manage interstellar diplomacy, deploy orbital blockades, and coordinate massive drop pod planetary invasions. The scale of the real-time battles looks absolutely staggering, seamlessly blending thousands of Imperial Guardsmen, massive mechanized Tyranid swarms, and towering Imperial Knights on the same battlefield without dropping a single frame. Creative Assembly is targeting a late 2026 or early 2027 release window exclusively for PC, and it's shaping up to be the ultimate dream game for strategy fans. Grand Tactician, Napoleonic Wars. Following the massive critical success of their deeply authentic Civil War title, Oliver Keppelmuller and the development team are officially shifting focus across the Atlantic with Grand Tactician, Napoleonic Wars. This is a massive, highly detailed historical grand strategy and real-time tactical hybrid that covers the entire blistering era of Napoleon Bonaparte's campaigns across Europe. The game features an incredibly deep, dual-layered gameplay loop. On the massive macro campaign map, you manage historical diplomacy, complex economic trade blockades, and army mobilization schedules across a gorgeous, paper map-style interface. But when the armies collide, the game seamlessly transitions into a massive, real-time tactical battlefield featuring tens of thousands of individual, highly detailed soldiers. The real mechanical hook here is the realistic order delay system. You can't instantly control units on the far side of the field. You have to physically dispatch couriers on horseback to deliver your commands, meaning your frontline generals have to rely on their own localized AI initiative if your lines are cut off by enemy cavalry. It's targeting an autumn 2026 release window for PC. Star Wars: Zero Company. If you've been waiting for a dark, atmospheric, ground-level strategy game that treats the Star Wars universe with the tactical grit of Company of Heroes, you need to look at Star Wars: Zero Company. This upcoming real-time tactical powerhouse skips the massive space fleets to focus entirely on the brutal, localized infantry and armored vehicle clashes during the height of the Galactic Civil War. The core gameplay loop revolves around a deeply complex destruction and cover system. You command customizable companies of either rebel insurgent cells or highly disciplined Imperial stormtroopers, where every single laser bolt is simulated in real time. Standard terrain can be completely leveled by incoming AT-ST Walker fire, forcing your infantry squads to dynamically fall back to secondary defensive lines or face instant suppression. What makes Zero Company stand out is its deep focus on squad morale and veteran progression. Losing an experienced sniper team or an elite squad of jump troopers drastically alters your tactical capabilities for the rest of the match. The visual design is incredibly immersive, trading shiny cinematic sci-fi tropes for muddy trenches, scorched armor plating, and localized urban warfare. It is officially launching on August 27, 2026 for PC, PS5, and Xbox Series X, and it looks like a phenomenal mechanical shakeup for the franchise.
Clearance for launch, we are go.
Civilization VII. So, the undisputed king of turn-based grand strategy is officially returning in 2026. Firaxis Games has pulled back the curtain on Civilization VII, and it represents the most radical mechanical evolution the series has attempted in over a decade. While the core one more turn formula remains firmly intact, the way the game handles large-scale tactical military conflict across its iconic hexagonal map tiles has been completely overhauled from the ground up. The developers are completely eliminating the passive, static combat of previous titles and introducing a dynamic, real-time battle resolution layer directly onto the hex grid. When massive Empire armies collide in the late game, the surrounding tiles organically transform into localized war zones where terrain height, supply logistics, and flanking maneuvers play a critical role in victory. The game also introduces a heavily revamped engine that allows for seamless visual progression from ancient Bronze Age mud brick fortresses to massive, sprawling modern megalopolises with localized anti-air defense grids and mobile radar arrays. Firaxis is taking a true multi-platform first development approach, ensuring absolute UI and performance stability at launch. It is scheduled to drop worldwide in late 2026 for PC, PS5, Xbox Series X, and Nintendo Switch 2. D.O.R.F. Real-Time Strategic Conflict. For the longest time, whenever a studio promised a spiritual successor to classic 90s RTS games like Command & Conquer or Red Alert, the end result was usually a visually clean but mechanically hollow indie title. But D.O.R.F. Real-Time Strategic Conflict is out here proving the skeptics completely wrong. Developed by a dedicated indie team utilizing a highly customized engine, this is an uncompromising, hyper-stylized Maximum Impact 2. 5D isometric RTS that looks like a lost masterpiece from the golden age of base-building strategy. The game drops you into a deeply dark, dystopian, alt-history Earth, where three massive factions clash over toxic, mutagenic resources. What makes D.O.R.F. so mechanically fascinating is its extreme emphasis on subterranean and vertical logistics. You aren't just building factories on the surface, you are actively digging underground tunnel networks to launch stealthy backdoor infantry raids, while simultaneously managing massive, heavily armored sky fortresses that rain artillery from above. The resource management is complex and highly physical. Ore has to be physically transported via vulnerable refinery trucks that can be ambushed, looted, or blown sky-high by enemy players. It's currently slating a late 2026 release on Steam, and if you miss the days of multi-tiered base walls, power plant management, and absolute tactical chaos, this is a mandatory wishlist item.
To face the Adeptus Mechanicus is to oppose those...
Warhammer 40,000, Dawn of War 4. So, what happens when one of the most legendary real-time strategy franchises in history finally decides to return to its tactical, base-building roots after a massive decade-long hiatus? Well, you get Warhammer 40,000, Dawn of War 4. And the strategy community is collectively losing its mind. Developed by King Art and published by Deep Silver, this sequel is explicitly throwing out the experimental mechanics of the third game and leaning heavily into the grimdark, gritty, tactical-based management that made the original 2004 classic a masterpiece. The game is launching with 4 distinct factions, including the massive series debut of the Adeptus Mechanicus alongside the iconic Space Marines, Orcs, and Eldar. Built from the ground up in a heavily modified engine to handle thousands of concurrent units, the core gameplay loop focuses on high-risk map control. You aren't just mining passive resources, you are actively fighting over localized strategic points to fuel your global war machine. The developers are delivering a massive 70-mission campaign alongside the return of the fan-favorite Last Stand mode. It is officially dropping on September 17, 2026, for PC, PS5, and Xbox Series X and S, and the hands-on technical previews confirm it is a visual powerhouse that treats the Warhammer lore with absolute reverence. Falling Frontier. So, space-based real-time strategy has historically struggled to balance micro-tactics with truly massive galactic scale, but Falling Frontier is aiming to completely break that curse. Developed by Hooded Horse and Stutter Fox Studios, this is a deeply tactical, hard sci-fi RTS that drops you into a procedurally generated star system, where logistics and information warfare are just as lethal as a laser battery. What makes this game stand out mechanically is the absolute absence of traditional RTS magic map vision. You don't just see enemies, you have to actively deploy recon probes, establish logistical supply lines, and set up deep space sensor arrays to track ship heat signatures. If an enemy fleet cuts off your fuel supply nodes, your massive dreadnoughts are essentially sitting ducks. The combat physics are incredibly deliberate. We're talking about realistic projectile paths, where stray railgun slugs can physically miss their target and puncture the hull of a completely different ship behind it, causing localized decompression and module failure. Behind the scenes, the development team has spent years overhauling the visual engine to deliver staggering detail, from individual ship customization down to the realistic orbital mechanics of entire planets. It's officially locked in for a late 2026 launch on PC. If you've been waiting for a space strategy title that rewards hard logistics over mindless button mashing, this needs to be on your radar immediately.
And tear down the machinery of oppression and fear the Nazis have brought.
Sudden Strike 5. Closing out our list is the grand return of one of the longest-running and most celebrated real-time tactical wargame franchises in history, Sudden Strike 5. Developed by Calypso Media and built on a staggering new visual engine, this sequel completely revitalizes the franchise's iconic tactical formula, delivering 3 massive, highly detailed historical campaigns covering the Eastern, Western, and Pacific theaters of World War II. The game completely discards traditional base construction to focus entirely on real-time operational command, giving you a fixed roster of highly detailed historical infantry, artillery, and armored units at the start of each mission. What makes Sudden Strike 5 a massive step forward is its deeply realistic logistical layer units have strictly limited fuel and ammunition reserves that must be actively replenished using vulnerable supply trucks driven to the front lines. The game also introduces a completely re-engineered commander system, allowing you to choose from various historical military generals whose unique tactical doctrines radically alter your off-map support options, from heavy airborne division drops to precision naval artillery bombardments. It is officially launching in late 2026 for PC, PS5, and Xbox Series X, and it promises to be the absolute definitive tactical experience for World War II strategy fans.